Good morning, everyone. And for those of you who are joining us from the other parts of the world, good day to you. I have great pleasure in hosting today a very senior and seasoned community development leader. So I'm very pleased to speak with you and Andrew today on the work that he's doing. Let me just give you a brief introduction of Andrew before we hear more from him. So Andrew's been working in management roles in the international community development and services sector for more than 20 years. He's done this very successfully in Central and East Africa, Australia, and now in Singapore. He's very experienced in social design, community development, and he has implemented numerous social programs, including the one that he's currently working on. He today runs a very successful nonprofit NGO called Changing Minds. They are here registered in Singapore, and he works as the CEO on a voluntary basis. His primary interest is really in youth, in particular on youth mental health and well-being. So I'm really pleased. Welcome, Andrew, and I'm really excited to speak to you today.
Thanks, Ravi. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you. So I want to start off by maybe for those of our listeners who are new to this space and those who have some experience, could you highlight the work that Changing Minds doing and maybe talk a little bit more about community development in general or in youth mental wellness?
Yeah, so the work that Changing Minds does is based on practice called AssetBased community development. And basically it's a form of community development that is very much about community empowerment and involves the community driving the processes of development and change within the community. What Changing Minds does is primarily we offer support to ground up and youth-led initiatives that are addressing youth mental health and wellbeing. And we do that through helping them to increase their capacity to do what they're doing well and sustainably. And the way that we do that is through offering a range of different sort of capacity building programs. We do consulting, mentoring, really sort of getting alongside, the young people that are working in the grassroots sector to make a difference for their peers when it comes to mental health and wellbeing in Singapore.
And this is really impactful work. And for those of you who are not aware, I know Andrew from many years now, and he's been very instrumental in helping shape the work that AssetBased is doing as well. I've been very grateful for his support, and he was really helping us to create a sustainable platform that we can use for mentoring and for upskilling. So, Andrew, maybe you could talk a little bit more about the trends that you're seeing in the space of youth mental wellness and the way that communities are developing in the light of all that's happening around us.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting area, and there's been quite a bit of change, in the sort of the mental health and wellbeing space over the last few years, and it's been mostly positive change. So unfortunately, sort of historically, there's been quite a bit of stigma attached to the topic of mental health, and that has made it difficult for particularly young people, but anyone really who's struggling with their mental health to know what to do about it, how to seek help, all those kind of things. But what we've seen over the last few years, and particularly among youth and young people sort of in the Gen Z and millennial age groups, so sort of that 15 to 30 age group, is a significant increase in awareness about the issues surrounding mental health and wellbeing. And that's been a real positive thing. And what that's led to is, at the grassroots level, a lot of young people starting projects and initiatives that address the topic, starting new organisations and social enterprise. So there's quite a lot actually going on, in the community among young people when it comes to mental health and wellbeing, which is exciting. And I think COVID also has increased awareness within the general community about mental health and wellbeing. A lot of people who normally wouldn't experience mental health issues have found themselves struggling a bit with depression and anxiety and that sort of thing just because of the COVID pandemic. And I think that because of that and because of the increased activity at the grassroots level with young people, we're also seeing mental health addressed in the media a lot more regularly. Hardly a week goes by now that there isn't at least one story in the newspapers or on television about mental health and wellbeing. So that's sort of where things are at. Where there are still gaps, and I guess one of the main gaps that we're trying to fill is in the application of skills, knowledge and tools to help these grassroots startups and initiatives to be sustainable. There's a lot of good intent, but a lot of these startups without sort of additional support won't be sustainable, and sort of history has shown us that after 1 or maybe 2 years they often cease to exist and to stop operating. And what we want to do is try and help increase the sustainability within that sector so that they can keep operating and operating effectively and make continue to make a difference for their peers and for the community in general when it comes to mental health and wellbeing.
Thank you for that explanation, Andrew. I think the piece that really makes me concerned is the fact that there's a lot going on. Now, not just for, let's say, not just in the corporate sector or not just in companies, but in general in the social sphere as well as with youth. There's a lot of pressure right now, and there's a fair bit of isolation too. And I can imagine why you believe that this is causing a bit of stress in the system. So this is fair. When I first got involved with you, I was really taken by the vision and the mission that Changing Mind has. And I continue to be, tracking and cheering for you because I think it's a really important space. Could you talk a bit more about how, let's say, asset-based community development works? And more importantly, how organizations which are in the space can upskill and make themselves more sustainable with your help?
Yeah, for sure. So asset-based community development as a practice has been around for probably about 30 years, at least, in an academic sense. I think the practice itself without the name asset-based community development has probably been around a lot longer than that, probably centuries. But academia gets hold of it and wants to put a name on it and create theories around it. So it's been around for a while. Essentially what it is it's described using several cliches. One of those cliches is a glass half full cliche, as opposed to a glass half empty cliche. And that glass half full represents the assets in ABCD that exist within every community. So ABCD works on the premise that every community has assets that can be utilised to bring about sustainable change, positive change in that community. And assets often described as head, heart and hands. That's the human assets. So head is the knowledge and the wisdom, local knowledge and local wisdom in particular. Heart is a heart for doing something to make the world a better place. And the hands is the practical, hands-on stuff that people can get involved in to play a role in making a difference. Assets are also bricks and mortar. So they could be places, parks, buildings, community centres, anything like that can be used as a resource. And of course, there's also money. Money is also an asset. But in ABCD, we don't necessarily talk a lot about money, the money side of things. It's there and it has a part to play. ABCD is also, as I said before, it's a community-driven practice. So it involves empowering the community to bring about the changes in the areas that they see as important, rather than traditional approaches to community development, which tend to be top-down. ABCD is a ground-up approach. So the top-down approaches are usually driven by experts, the government, and often they don't involve a lot of community consultation. The experts come in, they decide what the problem is and then come up with a solution which is then more or less imposed on communities. Whereas ABCD utilises the community itself to develop the solutions based on their own experience and local wisdom and knowledge and the resources that they already have around them. It's also probably the most effective form of community development. Over the last 30 years, a lot of time has been spent on sort of studying the effects of ABCD, and it most definitely produces more sustainable results. It increases resilience within communities because it does empower communities to be the change that they want to see, to quote Gandhi. And it's just a very effective way of bringing about sustainable and meaningful change around any topic, around any issue within a community.
I think that's really powerful because we have now starting to talk more about how sustainability plays a role in the broader scheme of things. And here you're talking about how can development become a lot more self-sustaining and self-empowering rather than looking to somebody to come and help you or provide you the resources. Why don't we start with what we have and then build from there? I think that's a really, really empowering thought, and it creates a mindset of self-sufficiency rather than trying to look to somebody else to solve things for you. So I think it's really powerful. Now, this wouldn't come that easy, I presume. And there is a fair bit of skills and learning in this mix. And this goes back to maybe the two elements that you spoke about, which is how do we get the head and the hands fully ready to follow the heart? So how do you bring that to life? Could you share a bit about upskilling and kind of things that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost in the process is relationship building. It is quite time consuming, but it's an essential part, I think, of the community development process. And that is building relationships with people from the communities that you're wanting to work in. And they can be people who are already doing stuff, running initiatives or programs or organisations within the community. They can be individuals who just have a desire to see change come about in their community. But yeah, that relationship building piece is really, really important. That creates trust, and it helps to open the door then to working effectively with the people to bring about that change in their community. Changing minds then is developed or has developed, and we're still in sort of the processes of refining and developing a range of programs for upskilling people in social design and innovation, and programs that deal with the mechanics of project management, of developing and designing effective social programs, and also just some of the business back end stuff that a lot of people don't have. They want to bring about change, they want to be involved in it and are starting sort of new initiatives and organisations, but perhaps they don't have the business background or some of the skills and knowledge that they need to start and effectively run an organisation. So helping with the setup and giving them some of the knowledge and skills that they need to be able to operate an organisation or to manage, effectively manage a project or initiative. And some of that is we're getting more sort of into some localised content as well. So some of that's involving people like company secretaries coming to talk about the processes that are involved in setting up an organisation and registering with ACRA, and what's the best path to follow. Are we better off being a for-profit social enterprise, or are we better off being a not-for-profit? There's lots of sort of decisions and nuts and bolts and sort of mechanics around all that sort of stuff that a lot of people don't really have any idea about, and we're wanting to sort of help impart that knowledge and understanding to the people that we're working with.
And you're so right, because this is probably one of the most empowering things that you can provide to them, is being able to skill them to a level where they can continue to operate on their own and not make the mistakes that people have made before them or they have made themselves. Now, I presume a lot of this requires a fair bit of hand-holding as well. And mentoring is a good way to ensure that there's a follow-through on the learning process. What kind of mentoring programs are you running, or what kind of mentoring programs do you have in play coming up that people could be part of?
Yeah, well, at the moment, mentoring has been on kind of a very small scale. We started out looking at sort of more of a consultancy model, but that consultancy model, because we found that we were working more with individuals than with organisations, although we do have worked with and are working with some small organisations, but we were mostly working with individuals. The consultancy model kind of turned more into a mentoring model, and basically what we've done, and it's been primarily myself at this point in time, is just got alongside. Been approached by young people wanting to create an organisation or an initiative, and just getting alongside them and helping them, through the different steps that they need to take in order to, set themselves up, helping them make that decision about whether to remain informal, sort of as an informal association, or whether to formalise what they're doing, helping them we've helped a couple of young people with event management, development and management. They've wanted to run events. So we've helped them organise those events and put them together, helping with things like impact and outcomes measurement, which is a really kind of a burgeoning sort of area of importance within the social sector, and particularly when it comes to funding. So helping them to understand how to capture the outcomes of what they're doing, use that for their own management of the initiatives, but also to use that as proof of their track record with funders and that sort of thing. But yeah, we are keen to sort of increase the level of mentoring that we're doing, and very interested in talking to anyone who would like to come on board as a mentor. Particularly people who have a heart for the community and for young people, and in particularly, the mental health and well-being of young people.
Absolutely. And I think this is a great space to be, because one of the experiences that we've had in the last 1 year of running at Pace, as you know, we started with building a micro-learning platform. And then now we've pivoted and we've built it on top of it, a huge mentoring platform, which allows us to capitalize on micro-learning, surveys, skills, and then be able to use that to mentor and create mentoring journeys. And we've had great success in running this for the ASEAN and Asia segment. We're launching the next one again very soon. So I would be really keen to see how we can bring some of those mentors to help with work that you're doing in changing minds, so that can really, fuel this sustainable model that people will be. Youth mental wellness is a really big piece. And I think I just want to come back to that a bit and talk about, there is a current work that's being done to help, let's say, youth in being more aware of themselves and being able to manage some of the pressures that they're feeling. I presume some of it is reactionary, but there is a real big place for early detection. Now, I know that you're very passionate about it. Could you help for those who are tuning in on how this works and what your vision is around that?
Yeah, sure. The common mode of operation, I guess, and it's not just in Singapore, it's everywhere, when it comes to things like mental health issues and that sort of thing in the community, and by the government, usually is reactionary. It's to react and try and find quick solutions to what we'd call a wicked problem. It's sort of multifaceted, it's multi-layered, it's not straightforward at all. But what we find is that the focus tends to be on what I call the pointy end. So it tends to be on getting people with chronic conditions into clinical services to support them, and treat them for the conditions that they're experiencing. Whereas not a lot of attention gets put on the other end, which is sort of the upstream side, I guess, where initiatives that actually deal with early identification and early intervention take place. And there's quite a bit of research that's been done to support a focus on early intervention in the mental health space. The figures at the most recent figures for Singapore show or say that young people are most likely to present with mental health symptoms around the age of 14, which is quite young, and that most of those young people, so I think it's about 3/4 of young people that are experiencing mental health symptoms will never actually reach out and seek professional help. For those that do eventually reach out and seek professional help, there's what we call a treatment gap. And that treatment gap on average is between 4 and 11 years. So that means if a young person, hypothetically starts to experience mental health symptoms at the age of 18, they're going to be well, and they do decide to seek help, remembering that most still don't seek help, they'll be well into their 20s, if not their 30s, by the time they seek professional help. And all of the evidence shows the earlier the diagnosis and treatment takes place, the more effective that treatment is, and the more likely it is that the person experiencing the mental health problems will lead a productive life. And so that's why early intervention, early identification, early intervention is really important. One of the things that we would like to see is that treatment gap reduce. And certainly there are different ways, all of them important in their own way, for reducing that. One is raising awareness within the community of mental health, as an issue, and I guess in a sense normalising it. The other is ensuring that young people have an understanding of what mental health is. There's an aspect in which everyone experiences, mental health in some ways. We all at times will have a low day or feel a bit off or feel a bit stressed because we're under pressure with work or whatever. That's normal. And even for those of us that experience those sort of things over a longer period of time, that can be quite normal as well. And we need to ensure that young people are aware of that it's normal, that how these conditions present, what depression is, what anxiety is, what the main sort of symptoms are for the main mental health conditions are, conditions like bipolar and schizophrenia and, those sort of conditions and the mood disorders. And thirdly, ensuring that young people know the pathways for help, that they know where they can go, that trust is increased, that they know that they can go and speak to somebody and know that what they talk about will be held in confidence, and that they can start the ball rolling on getting treatment, whether that's through therapy, through a psychologist or a therapist, or referrals to psychiatrists for more chronic conditions, that sort of thing. And we believe that community-driven initiatives play a really, really important role, because at the community level, at the ground level, that's really the first point of contact for a lot of young people who may be experiencing mental health conditions. It's their peers, it's the community groups that they're a part of, the sporting clubs, the youth groups, the youth societies that they're a part of. They're all sort of the first points of contact for young people. And, we think it would be fantastic if all of those organisations and more were equipped to provide the support that these young people require, to help them seek help if they need it, or just to keep doing what a lot of these organisations do well in terms of providing a supportive community, but doing it intentionally. Well, at the moment they're probably doing it incidentally, really doing it intentionally, knowing that mental health is a part of the process and one of the outcomes they can achieve, in the work that they're doing.
I think you're so right. I think as I was growing up, I think there was a fair bit of anxiety that I was dealing with just because of the kind of pressure that we had building up back that day. I think if you look at now, that has compounded. And I think just the explosion of technology, social media, expectations, and other sort of unprecedented moves like COVID, social isolation, everything going virtual, I'm pretty sure has exasperated that situation a lot more. I really appreciate you bringing out those three elements. One is you need to be aware, and most of the children might not be aware, or most of the youth might not be aware that this is something that requires them to be doing something about it, because they might just look at it as there's something off and I will just try and plow through it in some way. I think the second one is being able to take the stigma out. The normalization piece of looking for help is a big sort of blocker, especially in Asian society where we tend to be a lot more conservative in our thoughts. And then the last one is, how can people detect some of it, build the trust, and be able to take them to get the right degree of help for their specific condition. There is such a nuanced story in that sense, because it can go all the way from just feeling stress to really difficult conditions that need to be addressed quickly. So it's really hard, and I think the spectrum is huge. Just in terms of being able to contact you or collaborate with you, how would you like people to reach out to you at Changing Minds? What's the best way to catch you?
Yeah, look, collaboration is something that we love and see as really important. The best way would probably be to email me. Andrew@changingminds.co is my email address. You can also visit our website, and there's contact details on the website. Website's just changingminds.co.
Brilliant. So thank you, Andrew, for coming in and speaking with us on this really important aspect. And I wish you luck, and I hope that we can continue to collaborate with that pace and be able to support community development going forward.
Thanks so much, Ravi. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.